An absolute value is a numerical operator, which you can see here. They look like two bars that are almost like a grouping symbol, right? The absolute value is used to measure the distance of a point away from 0 on the number line. So the first thing that you have to do with an absolute value is you have to isolate the absolute value. You can't have anything written here on the outside. So here where you see the -2, that is a sign that you need to get rid of it first. Now remember, a number touching up against something is a type of multiplication. So to counter this -2, or to use the inverse operation, what we need to do is we need to divide by -2. Now, one thing worth mentioning is you cannot distribute to absolute values. So in this case, division is the only option available. All right, so now that I have the absolute value isolated, there's nothing written on the outside. Now we have to use the inverse operation of the absolute value, which is actually a type of split. So we're going to break this into two equations. In the first equation, we write exactly what we see here. It's just we remove the absolute value bars. In the second equation, you take the number that does not have the bars on it originally, so this value that's alone, and you turn it to a negative. And so now you have these two little mini equations that you could solve pretty quickly. So right now, the 4 is being subtracted from x, and the inverse is subtracting from 4, is to add it. Now what's cool about these equations is if I do it on this equation, it's the same step on this equation because they both have the +4. So if you can kind of muscle your way through the first mini equation, the second mini equation kind of falls through. So there we are. We have two solutions here, x equals 10 and x equals -2. Now there are some special cases I'd like to talk about, which is how you know if an absolute value has no solution. So remember how a minute ago I told you that an absolute value is measuring a distance from 0? Well, I can't take a ruler and measure something and get a distance that's a negative number. So if this absolute value, for example, didn't have the -2, so say it was just x minus 4 equals -12, this would be no solution. Because once your bars are isolated, if it's equal to a negative number, that creates no solution. That's not allowed. I'll draw a big old. The other thing is sometimes you have one solution. So the way that you achieve one solution with an absolute value is if when you have the absolute value, say I have x plus 5 here, all right? Once you have it isolated, if it's equal to 0, that would produce one solution. The reason why is when you go to split it, you can't have a positive and a negative 0. 0 is neither positive nor negative. So these little mini equations that come from it would be the exact same thing, which would then, of course, be the same number. And so that's how you get one solution. But there you have it. So get your absolute value bars by themselves, split it into a positive and a negative, and then solve the mini equations.